Hello and welcome to match day 10 of Championship Predictions from the Unfootball Podcast. I'm Craig Savage. With me as always, it's Mr. Daniel Cody. Let's have a quick recap from the weekend's action. And it was three perfect scores overall. Daniel Cody got his one from Friday night, West Brom versus QPR. And he got the Nottingham Forest Millwall draw. I finally picked up a perfect score for it's been seems like an eternity with Stoke winning 2-0 against Hull. But overall, Daniel Cody looks like he's got 10 points on the scoreboard to my 7. Let's get on with midweek action. We'll start off with Tuesday night. It's Cardiff City versus West Bromwich Albion at the Cardiff City Stadium. And it was a pretty disastrous Saturday for Cardiff.
They were awful defensively. They didn't actually have a huge amount less chances. And I think that's probably the biggest concern for Mick McCarthy is that although they were pretty toothless in front of goal in recent games, and they had been losing, they were 1-0s, they were 2-0s, they were 2-1s. This game, every chance against them, they let in. Ben Brereton Diaz, we'll talk about him a bit later on, had an absolute field day, and Cardiff are now left to pick up the pieces. But I said in the last episode, I'm going to keep predicting a Cardiff win till it happens. And if ever there's a time you're going to get a reaction, it's now. And if you don't, we're probably then sitting here next weekend, maybe starting to question the position of Mick McCarthy. And I hate to say that because he's a brilliant manager and I think he deserves better than what he's getting. But you have to question it after performances like that. If you don't, then get a reaction. And it is 5 defeats in 6 in all competitions too. West Brom, I'll let you talk about them a bit more because I know you watched the game on Friday, but it was a similar story really to the games that they drew beforehand. They were toothless in front of goal despite having the slight better of the game. And in the end, I know I got the perfect score, but it was basically the QPR keeper that gave it to me. I think it would be fair to say. So not too many encouraging signs. I would say this game is going to be a tight one because Cardiff will have to come out a lot more better defensively. And they've got a big back three, solid, good in the air. They've got to be able to defend set pieces. West Brom will suit them better. I'm going to start with the Championship's favourite scoreline.
I'm not going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline. I'm going to go for a West Brom win, 2-0. But yeah, as you said, I watched the West Brom game. And obviously, seeing early on was never ideal, but I thought they bounced back well. Had some good chances. Second half, they were a bit more dominant, took their chances in. It was a well-worked second goal in the end. But yeah, I thought they just about deserved it on Friday night. So that's why I'm going to go for West Brom again. It's a good side to come back from behind after conceding so early on. So I'm going to go for West Brom to win 2-0. The team that Cardiff got battered by, Blackburn, they're away to Huddersfield. Let's talk about Ben Brereton Diaz. He's got the hat-trick. The second goal was a slice of luck, but that's what you need when you're on form.
Absolutely. And I mean, we only mentioned it last week. He's replaced Adam Armstrong and it looks like great business now. Blackburn were fantastic. They took advantage of a poor Cardiff defence. They got runners into channels. They got runners in behind them. They turned a back three that doesn't like to go towards its own goal. They did everything by the book. And Tony Mowbray does deserve credit tactically for what happened in that game. Huddersfield, little bit worried about. I know that it wasn't the big thumping 5-1 win I predicted. I did that in the wrong game, obviously. But Huddersfield didn't have a shot on target. Swansea dominated the game. And it really could have been 2, 3 or 4 on another day. So it doesn't look quite as ridiculous when you watch the extended highlights. Back-to-back defeats for Huddersfield. Now, they are normally better at home. And I'm going to say the Forest game was an anomaly. So after all the excitement for Blackburn at the weekend, I'm going to go, ironically, for a 0-0 draw, Craig.
I'm glad you said 0-0 because I'm going to go 1-1 instead. I just see Blackburn coming back down to earth. To be honest, this is a 7th versus 6th in the table. So it's not what the two teams I expected to be 7th and 6th in this early in the season. So you have to give these two teams credit. We always expect midweek games to be a lot tighter, and I think this one will be tight. And I'm going to go for the Championship favourite scoreline of 1-1. Right, next up, it's Hull versus Blackpool. Blackpool, another home win, so they're moving up the table in the right way. Hull getting the chances, but not taking them, and they're paying the price for that with another defeat.
Yeah, it's starting to look really ominous for Hull. I know they're up against a good Stoke side. It's not maybe the game they were expecting to get results, but as you said, they had a fair share of the game. They had as many chances. They had as much of the ball. They just haven't got a goal scorer. And I think that's the difference between them and perhaps Peterborough and Blackpool, who they're playing, that came up with them. Blackpool have signed Shane Lavery. They've got runners in behind. I know pre-season I talked about him a lot, but he turns up with the winner again in that one. Blackpool are starting to look pretty good, you know. I didn't really expect them to pick up a lot of home results this year. And that one against the Barnsley side that were in the playoffs last season, albeit slightly weaker now under different management. It's a very good result, and they were decent value for it as well. Gave up possession and almost played like an away team on the counter, which really suited them. Hull have got to get a result out of this game for me, or we start talking about relegation and maybe Grant McCann's job as well, because that's starting to come up a bit as well. I'm going to go for Blackpool to win it. I can't see beyond that with current form. 3 wins out of 4. I'm going 2-0 Blackpool.
Yeah, I'm going to go Blackpool to win as well. They need to pick up those away wins. Hull just need to pick up wins. Obviously, 1 win in 9 now. We're not really spoken much about Hull because obviously we're talking about the opening day and it was a they've just been there and obviously not really picking up points. But I think Blackpool win this one. I'm gonna go 1-0 again. All right, next up it is Middlesbrough versus Sheffield United. Sheffield United a 1-0 win at home. Middlesbrough another defeat for them.
Yeah, Middlesbrough were really poor actually. Obviously a late red card which doesn't help them then for the next game. They were soundly beaten. It's a Reading side that, for all of the attacking players that they're getting back to fitness and the additions like Halilovic, they are short of defenders. They were playing a centre midfielder and a traditional fullback at centre half, and they didn't really get tested by a Middlesbrough team that I expected to go direct to really put them under pressure. They're playing against a Sheffield United side who I would say were very fortunate to win. They had obviously the sending off for Keller Roos in the Derby goal just before the hour mark, really struggled to take advantage. And we're relying obviously on a late penalty from Billy Sharp to do the job. But when you play like that, they're the games you've got to win. But Sheffield United need to hit the target more often. But Middlesbrough, similar to Cardiff, they've got to bounce back now, Craig. They've got to get a reaction. It's the first time after Saturday's game I saw a little bit of Warnock out on social media. See them saying, well, your time's up now. So he needs a reaction. The team need a reaction. I'm going to shock the odds. I'm going to go for a Middlesbrough 1-0 win. I think they're going to be defensively staunch and similar to Cardiff. I feel they have to get a performance in midweek.
I'm going the opposite way of Sheffield United win this time. Yeah, I think Sheffield United's confidence is growing now since the international breaks happened. Got a few players in and it's starting to look to gel. Nothing spectacular. Obviously, the 6-2 Peterborough wins fine, but it's still just picking up points. I think that's where I think Sheffield United just needed to do doing all the bad stuff they've happened the last year or so. This is picking up points is fine. I think they're going to do it again at Middlesbrough. I'm going to go 2-0 to Sheffield United. All right, next up detail. It is Preston North End versus Stoke City. Preston 0-0 at Birmingham. Stoke, we just obviously talk about that 2-0 win against Hull. Let's get Preston. Another draw for them. It's just, I don't know, it's just in the middle, really.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, I know Preston fans obviously in recent years have talked about playoff pushes, but with the level of investment that's coming from behind the scenes compared to other championship clubs, I would argue Preston being middle of the table is a pretty good job well done by the new manager, because I don't know what more you can expect. They haven't got a squad that can compete for the top 6. They haven't invested a huge amount into the team. They're running their club solidly. They're finishing in mid-table. I don't think you can ask for more. They kept the unbeaten run going, which was great. 4 draws in a row now, albeit, but they're hard to beat. And against Birmingham, they nullified their threat. They made them look pretty poor themselves. And it was just a lack of cutting edge at the other end, which, as we mentioned, they haven't got that star quality throughout the team. Against Stoke, I think they're going to make it a hard game for them. We've seen already this season, Stoke are unbelievable at home. They were a very different team on the road. They lost at Derby. I know they got the win at Watford in the cup, but I'm going to go for... Sure, I think Preston will nick it. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Preston.
Same scoreline for me, but opposite way, 2-1 Stoke. That was a much better Stoke performance on Saturday. Stoke being back to their ruthless best, obviously now 5th in the table. I can see them picking up 3 more points away at Deepdale. Okay, next up, it is QPR versus Birmingham. QPR obviously lost late to West Brom, Birmingham 0-0 draw. Are you surprised that QPR scored early on? Do you feel it could have pushed on a little bit more, or they kind of feel like they set back a little bit and let West Brom try and dictate play?
It was a little bit unlike a Mark Warburton side. I think that would be fair to say. Normally, and maybe it is just because they've been involved in so many thrillers and often ended up on the wrong end of them in recent games, that they did go a little more cautious. Obviously, left 2 of the 3 big strikers on the bench. They did set up a little bit more, I guess, reserved away from home, just tried to be a little bit more cautious. But let's be honest, if it wasn't for a howler by the keeper, it would have been a draw, and that would have been a decent result away from home at West Brom. So I'm not too worried about that. Birmingham, I mean, I don't know what to predict for this, because we always said they're a different side away from home. But that Peterborough game is really giving me nightmares when trying to predict this. So I now think this is one of the hardest of the weekend. I think a lot of people, despite Birmingham's 0-0 draw, will have this as the thriller of midweek. And I'm going to have the same. I'm going for Birmingham to bounce back on the road, 3-2.
No, QPR, I think they'll bounce back themselves at home. They seem to be better at home at the moment. I'm going to go QPR to win 2-1 if they take their chances. Right, next up, Barnsley versus Forest at Oakwell. Forest, first game under Steve Cooper, ended in a draw.
Yeah, and I mean, interesting comments from Steve Cooper after saying it was quite tough. I think he knows where the fragilities are. Lewis Grabban had to come off in the first half after missing a chance. He looks like he's got a muscle injury, so I doubt he'll be there. And we've mentioned about Forest, they struggle for goals. Have they got firepower behind that? Because Grabban was the one who came back to scoring form. It's a pretty even game, though, a solid performance, and they got a result, which at this point of the season for Forest is very important. And they're going to a Barnsley side that I'm starting to almost fear I might be right here, because a poor defeat of Blackpool, you could telegraph what was going to happen. Blackpool gave up the ball to them. They didn't create a huge amount of chances. Blackpool hit them on the counter and they couldn't defend it. It was so telegraphed, and they haven't now won in 6 games. They're really struggling. And I think they are going to end up down there. I wouldn't be surprised if Marcus Shop's a fairly early casualty, because he wasn't the right man for the job for me. I'm going to go Forest to nick it 1-0 and bank on a very similar performance from Barnsley.
I'm going to go for another Forest draw. There's still defensive problems. There's also attacking problems because they can't score either. I think Steve Cooper will obviously, it takes time for Steve Cooper to find the best out of his Forest side. I think the point on Saturday is positive. Obviously, they didn't lose. Obviously, unbeaten the last 2 games now. Obviously, picked up the win before Steve Cooper turned up. But Barnsley, yeah, it's a bit worrying for Barnsley, not going to lie. But I think the point will probably be a fair result for both sides. So I'm going to go for 1-1. Right, next up at Pride Park, it is Derby versus Reading. Derby obviously lost the points, lost the goalkeeper, and Reading 3 wins in a row. Do you see it be 4 wins in a row, or do you think Derby will turn up? Because obviously, being on -2, they really need to pick up points.
Yeah, they do. And obviously, they were unfortunate against Sheffield United. They defended so strongly after the red card and nearly got the result. I guess the one positive for Derby, if we're looking for positives, is that goalkeeper's probably the only position they've got strength in depth. So maybe that's not such a negative for them. Both sides have been relatively solid. Reading, bit of criticism, a bit of talk about the manager's job a few weeks ago. Now they're 4 unbeaten. They've won their last 3. They're starting to look a bit better defensively despite having no centre-halves available. And going forward, they've got a lot of their attacking talent back, which is really showing. Great to see the new signing, Halilovic, scoring. It didn't really work out for him at Birmingham, but he's a class player on his day. Do you know what? I think Reading are going to win it again. We mentioned before with Derby, this is when it's going to start to catch up. When you've got 3 games in a week and you've got 14, 15 senior players. I think Reading are going to win it. They will concede. I think it's going to be a really good game. I'm going to go for 3-1 to Reading.
I'm going to go 2-1 Reading. I was just right, 3-1 for myself until you said it. No, I'm going to go 2-1 Reading. I think Reading obviously been on that very good form. Derby will need something, not say something special, but they would need more luck going their way. Obviously, really pretty much put his hands up, said, yeah, it was a penalty and yeah, it was a red card. So that's nice of Wayne Rooney for once. But no, he was honest. That's up picking up points, but I don't think they will pick up points against Reading, to be honest. I'm going to go Reading to win 2-1. Right, at Craven Cottage, it is Fulham versus Swansea City. Swansea picking up 3 points. Fulham, a surprising draw at Bristol City.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it turned into a game I really didn't expect, which was chances galore at both ends. I mean, there was 36 shots in that match, which I don't think I would have had that down at the start of the game. Bristol City, to be fair, probably one of their best home performances since Nigel Pearson took charge. They had 4 clear-cut chances by Opta stat standards. And they put in a really decent display against a side everyone's tipped for promotion. So I think Fulham had a harder game than they expected. Maybe there was an air of complacency, I don't know. But they're still top of the away form table in the league as well, having played a game more. And they come up against a Swansea side that were really good against Huddersfield. I know, as I mentioned earlier with Huddersfield's game, it wasn't the big scoreline that I expected, but chances-wise, it very much could have been that. So Swansea look good. They look better at the back as well. I don't think they'll have enough here. I think Fulham will win, but I think it'll be quite close as a result. So I'm going to go for 2-1 to Fulham.
I'm not sure about this game. Which Swansea turn up and which Fulham turn up? You can get the good Fulham at home, when they can be ruthless, and or you can get the Swansea where they can come back with an excellent 45 away from home. I'm going to go 2-2. I think this is probably the game of the midweek. Right, Kenilworth Road. We're both going to this one. Luton Town versus Coventry City. Coventry excellent. 3-0 win against Peterborough on Friday night. Luton, despite conceding 2 goals, obviously only losing again, much better second half. They've got to stop doing these sort of things. They'll get excellent 45 one game and then an excellent 45 the other game. Are you worried now? Because obviously you haven't won in a while.
Not hugely, to be honest, because obviously it's probably an unprecedented injury list, which we can cope with, similar to Reading earlier in the season when they were struggling. But we've still got the performances there, which is good for me. The worry is on the road, giving teams a goal or 2 goal head start, which we did there. Against Bournemouth second half, let's be fair, Mark Travers made a couple of unbelievable saves. We had a couple of other clear-cut chances, and we probably had, over the whole course of the game, the better chances to get something out of it. But I think Nathan Jones pulled out a stat, and it's not my favourite stat, but I will do it anyway, is that for expected goals, Luton are 3rd in the table this season.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of XG, not going to lie.
No, the way some of it's calculated isn't great, but it does show that Luton are creating chances. It's a very new front line. It's been a very changing front line for most of the season due to injuries and knocks. Think back to early in the season when we were playing really well. Fred Onyedinma was tearing defences apart. He's now injured. We're very, very threadbare, and we're sort of reliant on players that haven't hugely played at this level before now. And players are out of position. So I'm not too worried, but it's going to make this game difficult. Coventry, another one of those sides. We mentioned Stoke already. Very different on the road to at home. They were brilliant against Peterborough. They were ruthless. Gyökeres is looking like one of the signings of the season to keep him permanently, and he's going to be a superstar. I'm starting to think if Coventry can pick up points on the road, they might well be able to be playoff contenders because they're that good at home. They've got fans bouncing behind them. But at Kenilworth Road, under the lights, first time this season, Luton are normally great. I'm stuck between the Championship's favourite scoreline and a 2-1 win. And I'm guessing you're probably not going to be far off that as well. I'm going to go Championship's favourite scoreline because I just can't bank on us not conceding a silly goal. And we're not taking chances. So how can I go for anything else?
The first time this season, I'm going to actually have to go with you in this one. And I don't normally want to. I know I did quite a lot last season, but that was tactical. It was a three-way game. I'm going to have to go 1-1 myself. Obviously, because it was the injury list for Luton is quite high. Coventry, obviously, I've been, despite people in the comments saying we're anti-Coventry. We're not anti-Coventry. We're not anti anyone, to be honest, this season. But they've done really well, really, really well. Good start from them. See the least in the league, so that's really positive from them. Obviously, Luton probably more desperate to win, considering the form they're on. Nathan Jones is probably desperate to win. And to be honest, they should have had more wins in these last 5 games than the results tell you. So I think 1-1 would be the right result for both sides. 1-1. I'm going to have to go with you for the first time in the season. Speaking of a team that loves a draw, it is Millwall. They're at home to Bristol City. Why do we keep saying Millwall get draws? It feels like 3 seasons running that Millwall seem to get the most draws.
Yeah, well, it is, isn't it? I mean, you stole my first line there, which is, speaking of results that are definitely going to be a draw, this one's got a very good chance. 3 draws in 4 for Bristol City, albeit all at home, which is going to shape my result. 4 in a row in the league for Millwall. I mean, everyone is going to be going for a draw. We know Bristol City are a better side on the road. There's no hiding that. They're 3rd in the form table away from home this year. They've won 3, they've lost 1. They don't draw away from home. But I feel Bristol City can deal with that direct threat a bit better and maybe hit on the counter. So I'm going to go 2-1 Bristol City. I think it'll actually be a decent game.
I don't think it will be. I think there'll be a win. There'll be a win for someone. I'm going to go Millwall. I don't know. Millwall needs to start picking up wins somewhere. Bristol City obviously surprised me where they are on the table, considering I don't really think they're all that, but they're not losing. So that's a positive from them. They're picking up a point here and there or a couple of wins. But I think they'll lose as one, unfortunately. I'm going to go Millwall to win 1-0. And the final game at London Road, it is Peterborough United versus Bournemouth. Bournemouth, obviously, you watched pretty much the second half of that. Obviously, clinical in their chances. Peterborough, another away collapse.
Yeah, but we've talked about this all season. Peterborough are not going to pick up points away from home. The worry for Peterborough is if they put that goal difference into an unassailable position, it can become a problem for them later in the season because it is going to be tight this year. Last home game, though, they were brilliant against Birmingham. Home game before that, they nearly got a point out of West Brom and played really well. So they're still going to make this a game for Bournemouth. Bournemouth have been, as you say, just picking up results. They've not been, bar the Barnsley game perhaps, they've not been hugely convincing. They've not been fabulous, free-flowing. They've been comfortable, they've been confident. And probably the Luton game is the biggest scare as such towards the 3 points they've had in a long time. So I'm going to predict Bournemouth actually to be held in this game, because away at Hull City, they struggled to a draw. Maybe these are the types of games they're going to find harder. Tight pitch, Peterborough getting the ball in the box. Obviously, Johnson Clark-Harris will probably be starting his ban. We're not going to go into that too much, but it does leave them very light up front. I'm going to go for 2-2. I think this is going to be a classic.
I'm going to go for a dominating win, to be honest, for the away side. I think if Bournemouth can turn it on style, they can really turn it on style. 4 straight wins. It's looking good in their favour. I think the fitness will probably will be a lot. I think it'll be the key for this game. Bournemouth seem to be a lot fitter than Peterborough. And I think once one goal goes in, I think that Bournemouth can easily score a couple more. I'm going to go for a 3-0 away win for Bournemouth. Let's have a quick recap on what we just predicted for this midweek action. I've gone very tight, a lot of 2-1s and 1-1s, and like the only convincing result I'm going to go for is Bournemouth to win at Peterborough. Daniel Cody's, it's once again, it's also gone tight as well. 2 teams he's only going to get with 3 goals, and that's Birmingham away and Reading away. And those are predictions for midweek match day 10. Do you agree with us or disagree with us? Let us know in the comment section down below and give us your predictions for this midweek's action. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Honest Football Podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter at Honest Football 3. And we'll see you next time.